Welcome to The Lock Shop with Nielsen and Hustler, powered by Coolbet Canada.
Happy Wednesday, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Lock Shop. Nielsen and Hustler with you once again. And, of course, you can find The Lock Shop on all of your podcasting platforms, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Find The Lock Shop. We're going to have more NFL content for you Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Probably by late weekend, we'll have an NHL Futures episode up for you as well on the podcast feed, and obviously here with video as well. And today we're going to be focusing on the Canadian Football League. Huss, what's up, buddy? How you doing, man?
What's up right now is I'm trying to grind and figure out what the heck I should throw out for our Lock Shop daily pick of the day. God, I just, these Tuesday and Wednesday during football season, and with like almost nothing on the line for the final day of baseball.
No hockey yet.
Yeah, it's a couple more lean days, but tell you what, we've had the most gorgeous week of fall weather here in the Peg. It has been so bloody nice out, and hopefully we'll have. Are you here in the Peg on Saturday for this?
I am. I'm flying in.
Game?
I get in late Friday night, but I'm there Saturday. Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah. Well, it should be. It's actually looking like it's going to be. I mean, again, for Winnipeg in October, I mean, a high of 16, sunny. We will definitely take it. But it's been gorgeous right now. And again, I just cannot wait to get to these football games this weekend. But obviously, we're going to hit the CFL right now. And we got an interesting Thursday night or tomorrow, which we'll chop up in the Lock Shop. And then big slate of games for week 5, ending with the Chiefs Raiders on Monday, which this Thanksgiving weekend.
Is this Thanksgiving weekend, buddy?
Wow.
I love you. Like, is this Thanksgiving?
Well,
it is Thanksgiving. I know, because I'm working.
Listen, we that's the one thing we've done at Winnipeg Sports Talk. We pretty much grinded all through the summer, and we're basically on. So, but it'll be nice to get an extra day off and then get into puck drop next week. And of course, we will schedule. For Thanksgiving, we're going to get to some of our favorite NHL futures, which are all up at Coolbet right now. So if you can't wait for hockey season and you want to back one of your favorite players or fade guys that you think are going to have stinker seasons, you can do that right now at Coolbet, and we will get that in the Lock Shop before puck drop.
And just so everybody knows, I mean, it may be Thanksgiving Monday, but there is a Monday nighter. I've already told my family. I was like, I don't know what we're doing Thanksgiving Monday, but Daddy's doing the Lock Shop Monday morning. So we'll have Monday picks for you. Be ready for that Monday Night Football, because we're grinding, Huss. That's what we're doing.
Yeah. My conversation with my family is, listen, I don't know what's up for Thanksgiving dinner, but just so you know, come 7:00, I will be occupied with the Chiefs and Raiders on Monday Night Football, but it'll be fun. It's a fun time of year and a great time of year. Now that we get into all of the excitement for the upcoming season of the National Hockey League football, and we can't forget a rather large event coming at the end of November, which not a lot of people are talking about, but Canada, the World Cup. There's going to be a lot of fun things to talk about, both at Coolbet and for the Lock Shop coming on with that. So, but yeah, CFL, we're getting down to the short strokes here.
We very much are. 4 games this week. We're riding together on a couple of them. We're going to head on a couple of them as well. Huss, what do you want to do? You want to talk about those 2 games that we're on together and then break it down, or just want to whip through our picks here?
Yeah, well, I mean, let's start off with the early games, because I'll be honest. I mean, the one that I had the most difficulty picking was this first one between Hamilton and Saskatchewan. And listen, I don't feel good about either of these teams right now. Hamilton had that great win over the Bombers, where they looked like the team that everyone expected them to be the last couple seasons, as the Grey Cup favorites. And it was sort of lightning in the bottle for one game, and they weren't able to come back at that huge win that they needed. And now they're essentially sitting here needing to win this game to keep playoff hopes alive. And then there's Saskatchewan, who basically looked like they were assured of a playoff spot a month and a half ago. They basically spent the entire month of September getting their asses kicked by the Bombers. And I'm not sure where that team is right now coming out of the month of September. I mean, I do think they've got enough talent to turn this thing around. But I really think that there's a lot of things lacking within that locker room, within the organization. And I just don't have a lot of faith and a lot of confidence in backing the Riders on the road right now. I think there's a lot of pride in that Hamilton dressing room. And listen, if this game was in Saskatchewan, I would certainly be on the Riders. But I do think that Orlando Steinhauer, and maybe this is just going back to that last home game with what they were able to do, stepping up against a strong team like the Bombers, the way they played. I'm just thinking that maybe Hamilton has that in them. Certainly, it's huge for Dane Evans. I mean, he needs to have some big games to, I think, instill confidence that he can be the guy going forward after a really rough year for both he and the team. And if you saw Saskatchewan last week against the Bombers in a game that, the Bombers were really beat up and a number of guys missing. Saskatchewan was getting their offensive line back, their receiving group back. They just did not have it. So I'm going to roll with Hamilton in this game. To me, this is the toughest pick of the week. We got to be on one side. I'll take the home slight favorite, the Ticats, at -2. Well, why do you like the Riders?
Well, I just like the fact that they're getting healthier. I mean, their offensive line's starting to come together, and it's only been one game. Right, like they just got them all back. You mentioned it. I mean, for a while there, it looked like they had this playoff spot completely wrapped up. But they have let it slip away. How about both these teams? Ticats have one win in their last 5. It was against the Bombers. And the Riders, rather, have one win in their last 6. And that came against the BC Lions without Nathan Rourke. So, I mean, these two teams have 2 wins in their last 11 games combined. So it's not like either of these teams are making a strong push towards the postseason. I just think that the Riders getting healthier, and look, I know Hamilton beat Winnipeg. I think Winnipeg would probably want a do-over in that game. But you said it right off the top. They spent the last month getting the shit kicked out of them by the Bombers. Ticats aren't the Bombers. Riders are healthier now, both at the offensive line. They're getting all of their receivers back, starting to get up to speed. Lack of a running game, certainly a concern. But I really like their defense still as well. I mean, as much as they have struggled lately, I still don't mind the Riders' defense. So I'm going to take the Riders plus 2.5. I'd like it at 3, to be honest with you. When I probably bet it myself, I'll try to get it at 3. But yeah, Riders plus 2.5. I'm going to ride with the Riders. And look, Riders have bit me in the ass a few times here over the last 6 weeks, but I think they get this one done.
You mentioned the running game. Just as an aside, there was a play in that game last Friday where the Riders had a formation.
Yeah, I saw
where
that.
They had 3 fullbacks on the field. I mean, if that doesn't tell you that they are scratching the surface on that side of the game when it comes to personnel, I don't know what. I mean, Hickson was awesome. He's out, though. I mean, Keenan France, we love him here. He was a great Bison. But, that running game's not scaring anyone. It's going to put a lot on Cody Fajardo. And, hey, listen, Cody, I think, has a lot to play for right now as well. I mean, he said it as much. When things aren't going so well, the starting quarterback, the Saskatchewan Roughriders, can be a real lightning rod. And I think he's got a lot to prove to get to the playoffs and make a statement come playoff time. And we got this game, toughest and shortest line of the entire week is BC at Toronto. This was another tough one. I know you've been on Toronto quite often. I went on Toronto last week, and they got absolutely smacked.
It was gross
by the Calgary Stampeders. I mean, 2 points on the board for the game. Listen, I'm still pretty high on BC. I'm impressed with the way they're hanging in there without Nathan Rourke. I think that win that they had against Calgary, I think, really instilled the confidence in the rest of that team that, they can still get it done with Vernon Adams. And as far as Toronto goes, I mean, obviously they clinched a home playoff game right now, but there still is a lot to play for in getting that one game at BMO to get to the Grey Cup. But I think just what we've seen so far this year, there's a big, big gap, in my opinion, from Winnipeg, BC, Calgary to everyone else in the league, and that includes the Toronto Argonauts, even though the Argos are very capable of playing with these teams right now. So I think BC playing to keep their hopes of hosting the West Final alive. BC, if they win out, including those 2 final games against the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, can actually host that game. So I'm gonna give a nod to the Lions, albeit with the long travel out there. I think that they can prove to some of the naysayers that they are still right in the mix there with Calgary, and it's very important at minimum that they get second place and host the West semifinal. As far as Toronto goes right now, it's basically them and Montreal deciding who's going to get a 1 win and in scenario right now. But that was just so ugly last week of what happened against Calgary. I have a hard time backing them this week. I'm taking BC.
Yeah, I guess my case would be a bounce back spot. I did not. Look, Calgary's good. Calgary right now, especially with Rourke hurt, second best team in the Canadian Football League. I don't think there's any debating it. If anybody from the East wanted to make the case for Toronto, I think that was put to bed last week as well. The Argos can't be that bad again. I mean, Calgary's good, but Calgary's not a hold you to 2-point juggernaut all the time. So there's a bounce back game coming here for Toronto. And from the BC side of things, and I watched pretty much that entire game. Well, I watched almost every game, all of it, every single week. But sat there, watched it live last Friday night. And I just can't read into anything BC did against that Ottawa team. You know what I mean? Like Ottawa, since then they fired their coach. It was a disaster. I've heard that there was some issues with the Red Blacks during the game as well. Like it was a disaster for Ottawa. It led to La Police being fired. This is not what they're going to face with the Toronto Argos. I think there's some inconsistency still in Vernon Adams' game. If the Argos defense can take advantage of that, I think they win this game. So I'm going to hop on the Argos here, -1.5. And it has been, I mean, from week to week, it's been like, wow, look at Vernon Adams. They've solved their problem at quarterback without Rourke. Then that next game against Calgary, it's like, oh boy, he didn't even finish the game. Pipkin was in to finish that game. And then last week, it was against this disastrous Ottawa outing. So I guess I'm not fully invested in Vernon Adams just yet, especially going on the road out to Toronto. So I'm going to take the Argos -1.5.
Yeah, listen, it makes sense. These 2 early games are real tough ones. Moving on to Bombers Elks, which is Saturday night, you'll have the call. I think I may be actually in a recliner straight across the field watching you in your booth. That'll be the difference of the lock shop on the weekend. If
that
there ever
sums
was.
us up nicely on the weekend. You're on one side of the stadium, great view, recliner. I'm in a suit on the other side of the stadium.
Yeah, we may have to get a couple photos and do a little photo collage live from both sides of the lock shop on Friday. These 2 teams played in late July, and that was the most bizarre game. The Bomber defense was playing at as good as it gets. I mean, and that is the backbone of this team along with the O-line. But that was the game that Zach Caleros completed 7 passes.
Yep.
And not only did they win, but they covered the spread. They won by 14 in that game. Listen, I'm incredibly disappointed with the Elks. I was on them last week on the money line. That was the game that they had to have. But I do think that they are getting better. Now, is this season not a complete failure? I'm not sure. I mean, if you don't win a home game again, I mean,
it would be viewed as a failure. Yeah.
But I will say this. I think Chris Jones, albeit in his very strange way of, changing half the roster every week, is finding some guys that can get the job done. And when I look at this, I just think the line is too big. Like, do I think the Bombers will win? Yeah. Are they capable of winning by double digits? Absolutely. But if you look at, think of when Montreal came in last time. And Montreal Bombers were a big favorite. And, that game went right down to the wire. Bombers should have won it, but in a nail biter, it ended up losing. And then, of course, that game in Hamilton. So I've been impressed with Taylor Cornelius as of late. I think he has a pretty interesting package. I mean, if he can be accurate on his throws and make the right decisions, he's got, the legs to leg out first downs, move the football, and keep it away from Zach Caleros. Listen, I think the Bombers are in sort of a cruise control situation. They've got this game, and then we'll see what happens and how impactful and meaningful those final 2 games against BC are, depending on who wins the West. But I don't think you'll see the Bombers with their foot on the gas for a full 60 minutes trying to completely humiliate the Edmonton Elks. I think they'll just look to win this football game and move on to the next one. To me, Edmonton plus 13. The 13 points is just too big of a number. Yeah. I'm taking the visitors.
Yeah, I mean, could they lose by 14 again? And could the Bombers cover with a 14-point win? I guess. But I feel like this goes one of two ways. Either they cover the 13 or they lose by 35. Like it's one or the other, I think, in this game. So, the Elks have been very respectable on the road. It's as simple as that. If you look at over their last 10 games, I think they've played 4 of them or 5 of them on the road, a couple of close losses, a couple of victories in there as well, and 1 blowout defeat. So this is not an anti-Winnipeg play by any stretch of the imagination, because I do think they win. To be honest with you, I'd be very shocked if they don't. But that's a huge number for any team in this league at any time, and let alone a team that's pretty decent on the road. So I'm with you on the Elks plus 13. I mean, I'm trying to think. What do you think for a score in this game? Like 24-17-ish? Like that type of thing?
Yeah, you know what? I'm thinking something like I'll go with 27-18 Bombers.
Yeah, okay.
So there you go.
Still cover.
45.
Right? Still cover.
What's the total? What's the total while I'm just looking at that?
Yeah, what is the
after I
total?
make that prediction. 50.5. So I actually wouldn't be surprised. I would probably take the under on it, and I will take the Elks. And let's face it, the Elks play best when they're far, far away from Commonwealth Stadium. So this is exactly where they're going to do their thing.
Highest total this week. The other 3 games are in the 49s, I think. So it's the highest total this week on that CFL slate. All right, Montreal, we're both on a -7 this week against Ottawa. Obviously, a tough spot for Ottawa to be in here after making the coaching change. Are you buying into a coaching change bump?
Listen, I love Bobby Dice. Bobby Dice is our guy. Great Winnipeg dude. One of the nicest men you'll ever meet. A great guy to talk football with, and a guy that hopefully will get some consideration for the head coaching job next year. But Paul Appolice was the head coach and the offensive coordinator. He called all the plays. Like yesterday, they still didn't really know how that was going to work. There was a possibility, Dave Naylor told us yesterday, that maybe Jeremiah Masoli was going to work in as part of the play calling unit. All I know is that Ottawa is in the midst of a lost season. Sean Burke decided to rip the Band-Aid off after that embarrassing loss last week, one of many this year for the Red Blacks, and make that move. I feel bad for LaPolice. I think that, things probably could have been different if Jeremiah Masoli was still around. But this is a results-based business, and the results in Ottawa had been horrible for the last couple of years. And I mean, this was somewhat expected, but you don't get the bump. Like, this is not the National Hockey League where you bring in a new coach who has a rah-rah speech to a guy, choose a couple dudes out, and then sees a team play scared. I mean, football, there is so much planning and preparation, and so much of that was the job of Paul Appolice. I just don't see how Ottawa is going to be able to come into this game and pull this off. And, on the Montreal side of things, they need this. And I think they really do need a big game to get some real momentum going to these final couple games of the season. Try and do what they can do. They'll be cheering for BC this week to snag first place in the division. But listen, Ottawa's already in next year territory. This is a brutal situation for the remaining coaches to be in without a play caller on the staff. To me, this is Montreal all day. And I'm actually surprised that this number isn't higher, considering the predicament that the Red Blacks find themselves coming into tonight.
Thank you. That's kind of where I wanted to start with. Why is Edmonton getting 13 points against the Bombers and Ottawa's getting 7 against the Alouettes? It doesn't make it. Montreal, now maybe this is the one reason why. Montreal has won 5 of their last 6. They're the hottest team. Since they beat the Bombers, Montreal's the best team in the Canadian Football League from a win-loss record perspective since the week they beat the Bombers, which was kind of a turning point for them this season. Their one loss was to Ottawa. So maybe that's why Ottawa gets a little bit of a bump here. It doesn't make much sense to me. They've beaten everybody but Ottawa since they beat Winnipeg. So I think Montreal is, outside of Winnipeg, and I would probably take Montreal over Toronto right now in the East with the way Montreal has been playing. I think their defense is legit. Trevor Harris has been looking after the football, and when he does decide to go down the field, he's throwing it to Geno Lewis. Here's a ridiculous Geno Lewis stat that I had for the game last week. his catch rate going into that game against the Elks last week was 61%. Okay, so he catches 61% of the ball thrown his direction. His catch rate 20 yards down the field or more was 63%. The further the ball goes down the field, the better odds are this guy catches it. And then he had that one-handed catch against Edmonton. Like, he's a freak. Nothing that he does makes sense. 1,000-yard guy. So I love this. Montreal, -7 all day. They've been playing very well for a month and a half. The only blip on the radar was an Ottawa team who somehow pulled that one off. Not this time. Montreal, -7.
Yeah. And listen, you were right. Montreal has got it done. I mean, they had that win against the Bombers that I still can't believe happened considering the circumstances with 1 second left in the fourth quarter. And I mean, how they won that football game last week with what the Elks were doing in the fourth quarter and ended up being a pick six going the other way. But hey, you know what? We say this about the Bombers all the time. Good teams find a way to win. Have they had some good fortune? Sure. But the fact that their last loss was to Ottawa, the mess that's in the coaching staff right now, and the predicament of the Red Blacks, to me, says Montreal all day, all night. And I guess this is a Thanksgiving Day game, right? This is a Monday
It's a
game.
Monday. That's a Monday game, yeah.
So we got a Friday game, a Saturday game, and then 2 Monday games, I believe. Or is it just one Monday?
It's just one Monday. It's just one day. There's
doubleheader on Saturday.
Yeah, doubleheader Saturday. It's a Friday game in Hamilton, and then the doubleheader Saturday, and then a Monday game. So, yeah.
Nicely done. Three games out in the East, only one West game. And, if the city of Winnipeg gets to welcome Dustin Nielsen once again out to the spot.
I think, is that it for me? Do you guys have another home game?
Home
against
BC. Home against BC.
I'm there for that one, and then West Final. And then I guess that's it. So just a couple more trips to the Peg for me over the next month or so. So we'll have to have some fun while I'm out there.
Well, for sure. And you know what? That last game, October 28th, I believe that's a Friday night game. What's weird about that is that, it is home. And depending on what's happened, that could be an absolute nothing game for the Bombers. Although it could be a meaningful game for BC, depending on where things settle going into that final week with Calgary and BC for second place in the West right now. And who knows? If BC wins and BC wins the home game against the Bombers and their other game, Bombers have a bye in between those, you'll see it. Although, having a bye week, then a game, then a bye week, I wouldn't be surprised if you do see Caleros and some of the guys at least play a quarter or a half.
A little bit.
Because, you basically could be going almost a month without playing any meaningful football for the Bombers before the most important game of the year for a trip to Regina in the Grey Cup.
Yeah, I probably got to keep them in the mix there for a little bit, at least you would think. So there we go. Head-to-head on the Riders and Ticats, head-to-head on the Lions and Argos, and then riding together here on the Elks +13 and the Alouettes -7 at home. That's Week 18 in the Canadian Football League. Back tomorrow to set up a interesting Thursday nighter. I guess we just leave it at that for now. Hey, Huss?
It's a nice tease, Dusty. We'll see you tomorrow, folks.